Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, The Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran, once again saying good morning to Alfred University professor of political science, Dr. Robert Heinemann. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here.
All right, Dr. Heinemann, so many things going on. Where would you like to start?
Oh, no, Brian, it's your show today.
All righty. British war photographer and correspondent kidnapped by apparent British Islamic extremists while crossing into Syria in July. It's just been discovered that he is being held, and he released a video on Thursday. Dr. Heinemann, your thoughts on this? Is this man to be beheaded soon?
Well, I don't know. However, let me point out that on the previous show I did with you, Brian, I did point out the strong potential for copycat efforts.
You did. I remember that.
And Wednesday, as you know, or Thursday, I guess. Yeah, Thursday yesterday, the Australians raided a number of places, and there was a whole effort on the part of whatever jihadists or ISIS people they have in Australia. They apparently were just simply going to go into houses, grab people, and take them out and behead them. So this has makings of a kind of horror epidemic, I guess you could say, out there. The point is, how far can this be pushed? And what's really interesting, I think, and disappointing and discouraging from the American point of view is it's seeming increasingly clear that President Obama and the military and the people who are supposed to be dealing with this are increasingly at odds on how to go about it. And Obama's position seems to be that there's no way that we're going to be able to put any kind of, that we will put any kind of military force in there.
That was my next question. Your thoughts on him saying now that with his position being that he does not want to put troops there.
Yeah. And clearly, the military commanders and advisors, it seems to me, feel the other way. And one of the reasons I think they feel the other way is that the situation is going to get so far out of control that it's going to cost us a lot more in terms of men to have to go in, say, 6 months from now than going in now while these people are still perhaps getting organized. But I, again, to be cynical about this, I think there's some indication that what President Obama wants to do is simply get out of the White House without having us involved in another military conflict.
Is he doing that for the person that he hopes will succeed him?
No, I don't think so. No, I think he's just doing it because he just doesn't want it. And it may well be, to interrupt myself here, it may well be that the guy has trouble sleeping at night knowing that American troops are dying out there, and he sent him to do that. I know Gates in his book Duty spent a lot of time on that he had to send these guys in, and they were seriously wounded, and many of them were killed, and you have to live with that. And I don't know, it may be that the president just doesn't want to do that.
Politics. Vice President Joe Biden
has aspirations for higher office, so I guess he has to.
Do you see him as the next guy?
Well, I see him as thinking about it, that's for sure, absolutely.
How about Hillary?
What about her?
Being the next president.
What are you trying to do, ruin my morning here, or what?
Your thoughts on that possibility politically?
Well, I think she's obviously looking at it, but I think there are a lot of forces out there that will do everything they can to stop her from getting the nomination or winning. And so whether she's able to overcome those or not, the question of identity politics comes in. I'm not certain that's all that constructive.
Another possible candidate, Andrew Cuomo, is that possible?
No.
Governor Cuomo won't go that far?
No.
Why not?
Well, first of all, I think he's bumbled his situation here in New York pretty effectively, and that indicates, I think, a certain ineptness in the political sphere. and that, along with his inability, I think, to have an appeal nationwide, is going to make it very hard. Now, you never know in politics, of course. He could end up a VP candidate, something of that sort. But I think really what he wanted to do was to come in with a huge, huge majority, overwhelming majority in the general election, thereby putting him on the national scene. The problem now is I don't think he's going to be able to pull that kind of margin.
Does the SAFE Act hurt him nationwide?
That's it depends on the area of the country,
Okay.
really. In the South, I think it does. In the Southwest, I think it does. I don't know how it plays in the Midwest, actually.
Have you run into any information on how his TV commercials for the New York State economy that are running nationwide
Right.
are doing? Are they influencing
No,
people?
I have no idea. You mean he's running those nationwide or statewide?
Both.
Is that right?
Some commercials are running nationwide,
I see,
some are
trying to
state.
attract business to
Yes.
New York.
And word is that one politician in Florida mocked it.
Yeah, well, I think some of these politicians could make some hay with this, that's for sure, because you are looking at a state that generally ranks pretty much toward the bottom in terms of business climate, and certainly ranks at the top in terms of taxes. So the combination there, it seems to me, makes these ads look a little fraudulent, frankly. But I do think in New York State, he's using basically state money to promote himself.
He's been heavily criticized on the Fred Dicker Show and the Bill Noje Show and other shows for running these commercials, some of which are statewide, some of which are nationwide.
Right. I mean, they're taking your money to promote the tremendous state climate that Governor Cuomo has put in place. And the problem is, I don't think he has much in terms of facts to back up some of the statements there. This attempt to promote private businesses on state colleges, on campuses, and I forget what it is now, up with New York or something like that. I mean, I don't think any of them have come to fruition yet. So I think there's a lot of hype here, but I don't see much.
Nothing did happen for Alfred as of yet.
Yeah,
I don't know that they've
over
let them down. I think they haven't got, according to Mayor Sean Hogan, they just haven't gotten around to the SUNY Alfred campus businesses yet.
I see. Yeah, right.
We're talking with Alfred University Professor of Political Science, Dr. Robert Heinemann, here on a Friday. I'm Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran. There have been a lot of NFL scandals lately.
Yes.
You had Ray Rice and Peterson. Most recently, former Steelers running back Jonathan Dwyer arrested for alleged domestic violence. Senator Gillibrand thinks that there should be congressional hearings on this issue.
Oh, I bet she does. She's making this her cause. Sexual harassment in the military, sexual harassment and abuse on college campuses, and now she has the NFL to work with. The attempt to politicize this is a little discouraging, but on the other hand, she does have, I mean, these are issues that are really quite important, especially the college campus one, but the NFL one too. Thinking on this a little bit, I think that a couple of things stand out here. One, these professional players, not all of them by any means, but you got to understand the background they come from and the culture that they've been raised in and praised for and given all kinds of accolades for, which is a violent game and a violent culture. And so their ability to interact constructively in a social sense, they just don't know how to do it.
Okay.
And you find this around prisons, and you find it around military bases as well. High levels of domestic violence, child abuse, and that sort of thing, because these guys are interacting in an environment that is violent, dangerous, involves a lot of these other two examples, authority figures. And so it makes it very difficult for some of these guys to adjust to what we would consider normal, decent relationships. Now, the other point that's kind of interesting about this is that you have a tremendous amount of money behind the NFL. And you got these airhead sportscasters, frankly, that are probably – and that's the other point I would make is most of these guys, I would bet, can hardly read or write. Literally can hardly read or write.
You're talking about the athletes.
Yeah, the football players. They have been exploited. They have been used. Now, not all of them, again. I mean, some of them are very bright. Alan Page is on the Minnesota State Supreme Court.
Right, right.
But a lot of them, they've just been pushed through high school, and there's plenty of scandals in the colleges where they've been put in courses and grades have been turned in for them without ever showing up. It's a tragedy, is what it is, more than a farce. So their ability to interact in any kind of constructive fashion, get a hobby that's useful or something of that sort, they're really pretty limited there. Michael Vick, of course, his hobby was dogfighting, and he got himself in trouble.
That was a bit unusual.
Not good. No, not good. But the point I'm making is there's a tremendous amount of money behind the NFL, and the only people who are really dumber than or less educated than the players are these airhead broadcasters who are making huge amounts of money just saying nothing on the. And I'm talking TV now, folks. I'm not talking radio.
Yes.
The radio.
We have no airheads.
Well, I don't know about that, but the radio broadcasts I listen to, the guys are pretty good because they have to be. You can't crutch on the. But it's really ridiculous. I don't want to go into that. But the point is, there's a tremendous amount of money there behind the NFL. But in this case, these other organizations have been able to break through that and insist upon decent treatment and concern about the behavior of these athletes.
Right.
And the women's groups, for one, but I think you've got a number of cases now. Did they drop that guy off the Bills who had a DUI? I think they did. He had a .18 or something like that. He's gone. So you've got a lot of groups out there, and mostly involving women, who are saying, hold it, this is just, it's just not acceptable. And so it's interesting they've been able to kind of break through the huge money complex that is the NFL and insist that these things change. And I guarantee the NFL is, they're back on their heels right now. But I think, the basic problem is they promote these players and the kind of activities they're engaged in, and so you're going to have some pretty bad behavior result.
On a somewhat similar topic, Congressman Tom Reed has been working with Senator Gillibrand and others to fight sexual harassment and rape on college campuses. Right. Thought of Reed as soon as I saw this. Clemson University, there's a report out that Clemson University since they got caught, they've been banning it, requiring students to reveal how many times they've, and so in the past month, and with how many partners.
The students have to provide.
The students were being asked of this. This was broken by a website called Campus Reform. And the South Carolina University was asking students a lot of invasive personal questions about their drinking habits and the birds and bees type stuff.
Now, I wonder.
Apparently, it's been stopped, though.
Are they a state school or are they a private school? I think they're a state school. If they're a state school, you got serious problems with that. If they're a private school, on the other hand, they're right to do that. Whether you think it's a good idea or not is another story. But their right to do that, I think, is much broader.
But if it's taxpayer-based, then it's more of an issue.
If it's a state school, you've got a 14th Amendment right to due process, liberty, etc.
Sure.
Issue. Private schools are not nearly as heavily confined by that, although there might be some limits there. But I can see a number of private schools doing that, and if you don't like it, go somewhere else.
And Tom Reed, as we said, has been very active on legislation
on this issue.
Well, it's
a serious problem. Gillibrand and Reed and whoever else is involved in this, the culture on some of these college campuses. And in a way, it goes back to the same thing I'm saying about the NFL, in the sense that with these fraternities and sororities and the kind of drinking behavior that you run into, and I suppose now to a much heavier extent drugs, these sorts of things are undercurrent on a lot of campuses, and it's very difficult for the residence life and student life people to keep this under control. And so I guess one way is making the colleges pay attention to it and take some action. But then again, you got schools with tremendous sports teams, and again, you got a huge amount of money and publicity involved.
Getting back to Reed for a moment and the subject of politics for a moment. Reed Robertson, the TV ads, have you seen any of their commercials?
The only commercial I guess I've ever seen, and that was quite a while ago, was Reed talking with his sister.
Okay. He's got a commercial out with a record playing, and it's got Martha Robertson's picture in the center like she's on the record label, and it's called Extreme Ithaca Liberal, and it calls Martha Robertson an Extreme Ithaca Liberal. And her ads, his ads seem to be a little bit more aggressive for the most part.
I see.
Than hers. Her campaign seems to have backed off quite dramatically from what it was in the beginning in terms of, she was easily accessible in the beginning, and WETM has been calling her out on this, that she doesn't really respond to requests for interviews or questions.
Well, I did see her on the Liz Benjamin show, YNN.
Okay.
And I must say Liz gave her a pretty rough time.
Why so?
Well, one point was that apparently she's running these ads about giving tax breaks to millionaires like Tom Reed, who's a millionaire, and Liz said, there's no evidence that Mr. Reed's a millionaire. Do you have any evidence? And she just she never answered the question. And there's the other one about her running the pictures of him previous to his losing all this weight.
Right.
Said that's kind of a smear, don't you think? Well, once again, she would not answer any of those questions. She just went on. And mostly, we're talking class warfare here, and the idea that somehow she's going to help the poor. Not that there are that many poor people in Ithaca, I must say. Maybe
so, Liz,
brother, it's. So
Liz Benjamin called them out. Well, WETM has been doing a lot with that. NBC Elmira, Channel 18, they have a reporter named Ben Amey, Amey, and he's been doing a lot of fact-checking of her commercials, and he usually finds from his fact-checking that they're only about half right or less.
Yeah, well, I think, again, I opposed Reed's blasting away at her early, but he has every right now to
this close to the race.
No, she's a nominee, and now it's against each other. And I think the whole idea of Ithaca Liberal is a legitimate criticism. I don't think it represents a huge portion of the rest of the district. So when she says, "Well, golly, he's criticizing his own constituents," well, yes, he is criticizing the Ithaca Liberals, right? He doesn't. That's not his.
That's not his base.
Yeah, he represents them, which he will do, I'm sure. But that's not the ideology, or those aren't the views that he's running on. And so, and if those are the views she's running on, well, then that's fine.
And our final question for you: it's a state race, the Cuomo-Astorino race.
Right.
That got a little testy recently. Governor Andrew Cuomo's campaign staff apparently downloaded a picture, probably from Facebook or someplace like that, of Astorino. It was a picture of Astorino and Astorino's 10-year-old boy, and they were at a Miami Dolphins game apparently, and you could see it in the background, the stadium and the logos and whatnot for Miami. And Cuomo put together a commercial saying that Governor Cuomo, was for Buffalo, and look at Rob Astorino, he's a Dolphins fan. Well, add to that, Astorino and his 10-year-old son both complained about it. Astorino's son and Astorino both asked, why did you take 10-year-old Johnny or whatever his name is?
So they cut him out of the picture, right?
They cut him out of the picture of the Cuomo staff, which I would have thought was the right thing to do, to keep the kid out of it.
Well, no, they don't want any indication of Astorino's family connections and the fact he has he has 3 or 4 children and he's happily married, and Cuomo doesn't want anything like that out on the airwaves. And Astorino should be pushing that more and more and more, which I think he is. But the other thing, again, on the Liz Benjamin show, Astorino, for the first time, made a point that I've been very suspicious about, too.
What's that?
And that is that, as you know, Cuomo hasn't debated. He refuses to talk to reporters. He makes an announcement. And I think, and Astorino made this point, he's under investigation by the federal attorney from Manhattan.
Right.
And he's been told by his attorneys not to talk about it. And so now you got a guy running for office who can't talk about one of the biggest issues that I think is part of the campaign.
Do you think that Martha Robertson, and Governor Andrew Cuomo might be avoiding for one reason because of Obama's lack of popularity at the moment?
Well, I think that makes some sense on Robertson's part. No, I think on Cuomo's part is that this is much more serious than what Robertson is doing. She's trying to, I think, weave and work her footwork there so that if she gets a shot, you can bet she'll be out there. She may be running out of money, too. I don't know. But in Cuomo's case, Cuomo has a huge amount of money. He's running all these New York State is great ads on taxpayer money, and he refuses to talk to anybody. Now, there's something going on there. And the point is, Astorino's point was he's a target of this investigation. Astorino played that a little farther, I thought, by saying it's up to the federal attorney to make available the information he has. And, of course, the federal attorney has said he will not do that till after the election. And Astorino's point is, hold it. You're voting for somebody here. You should know whether this guy is going to end up governor or not. And so he's playing that a little bit and getting some. But I do think unless it will be interesting to see if Cuomo begins to talk. I think he will not because, as you know, the first questions he's going to get are going to be about the Moreland Commission and why he disbanded it, and did he put pressure on these people to avoid investigating the big money givers, and so it's pretty corrupt.
Dr. Robert Heinemann, professor of political science at Alfred University. Any final thoughts before we move on to Kilmeade and Friends?
No, I think the quicker we get there is the better.
It's AM 1480 WLEA, Hornell, New York. NBC is next, then Kilmeade.